Hi everyone. In this video, I want to kind of lay out the groundwork for Unit 2 and introduce the community-based argument assignment. So you've just kind of finished going through the first 2 weeks pretty quickly, working on the rhetorical analysis, and now you're turning to the second unit, the second project. So I want to hopefully answer some of the important questions up front and kind of help you think about where you're going to be going from here. So now that you've finished this first assignment where you've been analyzing the arguments that other people have been making, in this paper, it's the opportunity to make an argument that you're interested in, you're invested in. Um, so now you're going to take a lot of those kind of basic tools, the rhetorical appeals, the rhetorical situation that you learned about in Unit 1 and put them to work in this next paper. So now the title should give you an indication about what the kind of general gist is. So as a community-based argument, you're going to be writing this paper for a specific community and a particular audience. So the goal of this argument is to inform. Now that's important because a lot of times people think, oh, if it's an argument, it's got to be a proposal. It's got to be offering a course of action to my reader or my audience about what they need to do. And that's actually not what we're doing here. You are focusing solely on drawing your audience's attention to an issue and convincing them why this problem exists, why it's complex, why they should be invested in it, basically. So with that in mind, you're going to be writing for a particular community. Who that community is up to you. There are some guidelines in determining the community so specific. So it needs to be a community at the university, local, regional, or state level. So you can go up to the state of Kansas could be the kind of broadest audience you're writing for. You could be looking at Topeka citizens or looking at the residents of Shawnee County, or maybe you're just looking at one group in one program. Maybe you're just looking at the nursing major at Washburn, right? So who that community is up to you, but in part that's to the identifying a specific community is meant to help you think about specifics, who your audience is, actually thinking about what they know, what you're going to bring to the table, and how you can speak to them and try to get them invested in what you have to talk about. So once you know your community, you're going to pick a particular topic that's going to be something worth addressing, right? So this is going to be a research-based argument, so you will be finding outside sources to support your claims. And the argument has a specific goal, right? Like I said, so you're informing your audience of this issue and its complexity. So depending on your topic, your audience might be generally aware of the issue but not know the specifics. They might think one thing and you might be saying, well, oh, actually, it's different. When we look at it this way, you're not thinking about all these other aspects. Or maybe they're just unaware of the issue altogether, and your goal is to draw their attention to this argument and what's happening. So once you know your audience and you know your issue, you can figure out what do they know and what do you need to inform them about. And that's where a lot of the research is going to come in, and really the heavy lifting in your argument is going to occur. So we're going to talk about different genres, and you'll be looking at different genres of arguments in the first part of Unit 2. And so those genres might come into play, and probably will. So especially arguments of facts, definitional arguments, causal arguments. These might all be the approaches and genres that will be helpful in crafting your argument for this paper. So your main goal, as it says, you might call for a general need to change something in your conclusion. Maybe at the very end of the paper say this needs to be fixed. But your goal is to inform. So what I'm ultimately looking at for you to be doing in this paper is that sentence in italics at the end of the assignment description. So ultimately, you want to inform your audience why this issue needs to be addressed and why it exists or persists, and convince them how they should understand or interpret this issue. So in part, you're becoming the expert on the issue, and you are informing a broader audience about why they should be invested, what they need to know, all that kind of stuff. So when picking your topic, it's important that it is specific and focused. If you go really broad, that becomes really difficult, both in terms of conducting your research and making a strong argument for your reader. Example, this is kind of thinking like, oh, I want to talk about cyberbullying, which is, okay, that's good, but how long has cyberbullying been going on now? 15, 20 years at least. That's a lot of time to think about. And cyberbullying in what context? The internet? Well, that's enormous, right? So It's not that you couldn't work on some aspect of that issue, but you would need to narrow it down a whole lot. So maybe you're thinking about, oh, I want to look at how um, high schoolers interact with uh, their fellow students on Facebook only, right? So that's a good example. It's a good starting point, right? But it's a much more specific, narrow slice of the pie than thinking about cyberbullying on the entire internet. So that's one of the things you want to keep in mind and be really thinking through as you think about a topic for this paper. Um, so keep in mind that what to do, what not to do. You're not proposing a solution, so make sure you're not doing that in this paper. You'll be using outside research in this paper, and the goal is to have it support your claims. So it will be about your topic. It's going to be helping you make your argument, but it is important that I see your voice first. This is the one of the biggest challenges with this paper is that you don't let your sources overtake everything. You are not finding a bunch of research and just dumping it in the paper and saying, here's what I found. You're making the argument. You're saying, here's what I see as the issue. Here's point 1, point 2, point 3, and then you're using your sources to support what you're saying throughout the paper, right? So that's one of the biggest things you need to focus on. So you're going to need a good blend of citations, right? So you'll want to look at some summaries, some direct quotes, some paraphrases, right? Thinking about different ways to bring that information into your paper in a way that's not going to overtake your voice. So in this paper, generally I recommend avoiding them in a paper of this length, but you can use one block quote, so that's one longer quote, but there better be a reason for it in the paper. If it's clearly evident that you just kind of drafted a bunch of text in there because you really were trying to meet the word count, I'm going to notice that. So it shouldn't be filler. There should be a reason for it being there. So, otherwise, right, your sources should be current, they should be varied, and they should be relevant. So it should be up to date. You shouldn't have 5 newspaper articles or 5 magazine articles and nothing else. And then they should be relevant and credible, right? So they should relate to what you're talking about, and they should be from sources that are trustworthy. So you will need to find 5 to 7 credible outside sources to use as support in this paper. They can be either informative or persuasive or both. Some sources will both inform and persuade an audience. Some will only do one or the other. They need to be current, usually published within the past 1 or 2 years, and relevant to your topic. They can be, if you find slightly older sources and you have questions, I would say just send me an email and let me know. In some cases, they're fine. It depends a lot on your topic. Sometimes you have to go a little bit older. But for the most part, hopefully you're picking a recent enough ongoing topic that it's the sources from the past 1 to 2 years or so are going to be helpful. So now the one source that this may be an issue with, and I'll talk about it again in a second, is the academic journal article. So you can use primary research. I mean, given the nature of how quickly we move in this class, it might be difficult to conduct an interview or do a questionnaire. But if you have the opportunity, you really want to do it, go for it. And I'm glad to kind of help you out with that a little bit more. The rest of your sources can be from popular sources. In other words, they can be from magazines, newspapers, websites. They still need to be credible, but they don't have to be academic sources. But you do need at least one scholarly journal article or piece on your topic. Now, this is the one I said that it's okay, probably if it's a little bit older, because scholarly journal articles get published a lot slower than a newspaper or magazine article. So if you're picking something really new, like let's say the newest changes on Snapchat, just for an example, nobody has written a scholarly article on that yet because maybe they just happened last week or a month ago. So there may be articles out there from scholars on Snapchat or maybe on social media or photo sharing more broadly. They could be helpful and apply to your argument. So you have to use a slightly different approach sometimes when looking for the scholarly journal article. So in that case, it may be okay if it's a little bit older. But the popular sources, magazine articles, newspaper, website articles, whatever you're looking at, needs to be more focused and specific and more recent. So for selecting a topic for this paper, it should be a recent issue relevant to your target audience. So it should obviously be something they're invested in. They're going to relate to in some way. There are a few guidelines. It needs to be a current issue, so the issue can't be resolved already. It can't be something that's already been fixed and we've moved on. And it has to be relevant to your audience. It has to be, as I mentioned before, local or state level in scale. So it's got to be focused, specific. It can't be a national or global issue. You're not talking to all of America or the world. You're thinking about a specific audience and a specific group. I don't allow hot button issues. Now, this includes, but is not limited to, things like abortion, capital punishment, gun control, the drinking age, legalizing marijuana, immigration, gay marriage, and teen pregnancy. And the reason that is because these topics tend to be so overdone that there's not really much that you're going to add that's new. And everybody says they want to do it, and then they start doing it and realizing, oh, this paper is kind of boring or it's difficult because what I'm going to say is different. So that's why I don't allow that to happen. Other than that, remember that the topic needs to be focused and specific. So I am, as with the last paper, I will be looking at your topic paragraphs, making sure that your topic meets the guidelines and letting you know if you need to change it in any way. But feel free to contact me with any questions, set up a time to chat if you're having trouble finding a topic, if you're not sure if something works or not. So. But once you know your topic, hopefully you'll also know your audience, right? So it should be a specific community. So it could be a geographical community. So like I was mentioning, Kansas or the city of Topeka. It could be an organization, like let's say Washburn. It could be a digital audience, right? Maybe Twitter, Reddit, a particular online community, something like that. So knowing your audience is important because that'll help you figure out how to make your argument speak to them. So yeah, the assignment outcomes there, you can see really that you're able to identify and work with and thoughtfully kind of work through a purpose, in this case, informing your audience. You're able to analyze and evaluate different kinds of text and bring in those sources to support your positions throughout the paper. You show, again, a working knowledge of key rhetorical features. You're able to integrate your ideas with the ideas of other sources and of information. In terms of organization, again, you really want to think about how to organize and structure your argument to most effectively engage your audience. And for this paper too, since you're talking to a specific audience, I'm going to be looking at the tone, the level of formality, the style. All right, so how are you developing your voice while also speaking in a way to your audience that's going to engage them? So, the length and the format are the same as the first paper in that it's 1,500 to 2,000 words, APA formatting, cover page, running head, all that stuff. You have a few more sources, right? So all the sources need to be cited in the body of the paper and on the references page at the end of the paper. And so I'm looking, when I grade your paper, specifically for that you really detail the complexity of your issue. So what are the things you're telling us that we didn't already know? Why is this not a simple yes or no, black or white issue? That your argument's thoughtfully written and organized to convince your audience. It's well researched. You have evidence supporting your claims throughout the argument, and you address potential counter arguments or alternative hypotheses. Right? So what if you're providing a particular interpretation of your issue? Why are you rejecting interpretations that others are making? So in terms of the dates, those are all listed out on the assignment sheet again and on D2L. So make sure you're aware of those as we work through the unit. The grading breakdown, there's a couple of extra elements this time around. So your topic paragraph is 5% of your grade. The source list that I'm going to ask you to do, and that's just going to be basically a general list of your sources. And when we get there, you won't be locked into it. So you'll have an opportunity after you get my feedback on your source list. Maybe you'll need to find a couple more sources. Maybe you start writing the paper and realizing those sources don't work anymore. That's fine. You'll also be submitting an outline for this paper. It's going to be very general, very informal. It could be more formal if you want, but I'm just kind of looking for a sketch of what your argument is going to look like. And then you will again be submitting a draft for this paper that we will be doing a peer review on. So all that is 25% of your grade. So the process work is 25% of your grade on this paper. And then same breakdown with the rhetorical analysis in terms of the final draft. So 10% on organization, 10% on APA formatting and your bibliography, which is going to be more in depth than it was for the first paper, 5% on grammar mechanics, and then 50% on content. So the strength of your argument, that I'm seeing your voice really kind of come through and we really understand what your argument is. You're informing your audience and doing so in an engaging way. So as with the last assignment, the rubric is on D2L for the community-based argument, so you can look over that for a little bit more of a specific breakdown on how I'm going to grade the specific elements of the paper. And as always, I'm glad to answer questions about what you're going to be doing, or about topics or the assignment, anything like that. So just kind of a quick overview of this unit. So for this unit, since you've now got the basic concepts for argument, the rhetorical situation, the rhetorical appeals, you're going to be turning now to genres of arguments in the first couple modules. So looking at arguments of fact, definition, causal arguments, things like that. And then you're going to turn to structure, you're going to turn to formatting, talking about how to find and evaluate sources, since that's important, and you're going to be doing that in a lot more depth for this paper and for the research essay in Unit 3. So there's going to be a turn to that before you start working on the research, the topic paragraph, the source list, outline, all that stuff for the draft of the community-based argument. So again, if you have any questions along the way, and you want to set up a time to meet with me, or you just want to send me an email, let me know. I'm glad to help out however I can. And I do look forward to seeing, especially what you pick for topics for this next paper, what communities you're going to be working with, what issues you're going to engage with, and let me know if I can be of help in any way. So, all right, looking forward to seeing what you come up with.